Mike and Mine podcast. Hudson Hott, Scotty Blaisdell, Alan Wagner, our resident therapist, LMFT. Ooh, good one today, guys, I think. I
Hmm.
don't know though if Scotty's going to be able to relate to this. I mean, I think he will, but like, I wanted to talk about oversharing, whether it's online, because you see a lot of that happening. You're a Facebook guy. You see people dumping all this stuff. Alan, I'm sure you deal with this, in therapy sessions. But like, man, I see it more and more and more. And I've got friends who will come over and they will unleash. And it's
Well,
different when it's a friend, but when it's random people that you're just meeting and you know about their whole story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? That's a lot of oversharing. So I thought we would talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do Instagram as well, but I think Instagram people don't share as much thought. It's
Yeah.
more quick things, whereas Facebook people will just
Right.
blah. I wonder what it is about that particular, social
Platform.
media
Yeah,
platform that just draws that out.
I agree. I see. Yeah, Alan, you jump in on this because you're the therapist. Go.
Well, look, I think people like to express themselves. That's 100%. And you see it online sometimes on those message boards when people post things, they'll like get into these fights with each other. But sometimes, you're online and you're on Facebook and you see somebody just posting about they got dumped or something's going on with them physically with their cat and and it's like it's almost a way to garner empathy. And I guess if I had to sort of get into this a little bit, I think the oversharing, I've noticed that a lot, maybe in the age of social media, and it affects people in dating too, because you could know so much about a person before you've even met them on a first date in today's world, because people seem to dump everything in these chats. They feel so safe to just talk about their families and their goals and their dreams and their flaws and their habits and so it's something that you sometimes know too much too early. But I think it really relates to therapy in the sense that I think people have a feeling about therapy, and this is where I come from, that it doesn't have to be pathology. It could just be that you want to get better, insightful, or that you need to express the pain in your life so it doesn't get put on others. And I think a lot of times people think of therapy as like, oh, I got to fix depression, I got to fix anxiety, I got to fix my marriage, I got to work on my communication. But sometimes it's just to express yourself because it's very uncomfortable sometimes, like when you're with an acquaintance and they're opening up about something that's very personal and you don't know them that well, and yet you're sitting there hearing about a trauma of their life right off the bat. And I think in person it's uncomfortable, but I do think it feels good when we do it with our friends and family. But I've often found that sometimes people are so isolated in this digital age that they see their online followers or their online friends as their friends and family, as opposed to seeing them as something different. So when they're saying these personal things, it should be going to a human, and yet it can go to 1,000 people who barely know you and don't even know what to say. It's like watching a car wreck or something.
Well, that's my question, I guess. Do people like for me, I know that there's a mix of people that I actually physically know, have interactions with outside of
You'd call
social
them on the
media.
phone.
Hmm?
And then there's other ones that are just there because, they listen to the show or we met at some golf event or whatever. There's
Yeah.
some, and so you don't really know them on a personal level. And so I kind of understand that as I present things. Sometimes I'll give a backstory instead of going, well, Brandon and Lily, blah, blah, blah. I'll say my son Brandon and his wife Lily, blah. So people have a little bit of a catch up so they understand what I'm talking about because they may not know me in that much of a detail. But there's so many folks that'll go on and go, yeah, he did it again. And that's their post. And you're like, what? Who
What?
is this? What? I have no clue who you're talking about or what you're talking about. Am I supposed to go back to your page and research what that means? Are they under the understanding that everybody follows their individual page, that that's all they have to say is he did it again for us to understand them?
Did
Yeah.
we read the same Facebook post?
I don't know, maybe. I've
Because
definitely
that
seen
I
that one.
just saw that last night.
You
He
Yeah.
know,
did
I,
it
I
again. And I didn't know what this person, and I've known this person for years, as have you, Scotty. But I had to know, like, I had no idea what the heck they were talking about. And then I'm like, okay,
So
should
did you
I go back?
engage?
No, I didn't engage. I did not engage. Because I never really truly found out. I had to assume what this was, leading towards the previous posts. And I just went, okay, all right, enough. And I actually was thinking about the oversharing aspect of it. And even my girlfriends, like I have a girlfriend right now who's single. One of my girlfriends, and like she's on dating apps, and I always feel like she just says too much too soon.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I know that you're trying to
They're
connect
creating
with someone.
intimacy. Yeah, sometimes it's artificial intimacy because it's like you're just vomiting it. You're not really sharing it. And so again, it's you're getting stuff out that has consequence, but you're not going to get that emotional connection with someone you don't have a rapport with. And it's interesting that we're doing this topic too, because I can think of two different sessions I had this week where a couple had had a fight and where somebody wrote something vague or ominous on Facebook, kind of like, here we go again, or I guess I just, sometimes in life you can't trust people or, you can't rely on people or you just have to do it on your own.
Mm.
And it's like dot dot dot. It's like, well, then she must be having problems with her husband or she must be having problems with, whatever it is. It's like they put
Whoever's
it
looking
out
at that.
there. It's like chum in the water to try to get acquaintances to come and check on you. And I wonder sometimes about the depth of friendships because I know how much quality time do people spend these days in person with people. And I think some of the most intimate relationships that I've had for 40 years even are the ones that for hours, my friends and I would go like looking for cans to put quarters in the machine or whatever it was. And it was just, we were always trying to spend time with each other, play street hockey, have cool conversations, ride trains. We were on adventures together. And so they were like my real friends that I could say anything to. But today I feel like people are so isolated. They'll talk while they're playing Fortnite or they'll talk while they're playing D&D or another type of video game, but they're not having those connections the same way. And so for them, maybe like I would say something about like, oh, here we go again to Hudson. But at the same time, should I be saying that to people who, I went to college with and haven't spoken to in 20 years?
So should we, I mean, in my mind, I do, but should people understand that they need to separate who their true, real friends are and not share, blast it out to the world? That's like us going on the radio. And if I said, "Oh, my neighbor is just such a jerk,
Yeah.
and I'm like, why would I say that to thousands of people instead of going to my neighbor and saying something to them or talking to my wife and saying, how can we address this situation? You're sending it to people that can't help you or probably frankly don't care
Yeah.
because I don't know how many times I've read something and I say, wow, I hope someone in their life reaches that person. I don't have the capacity to help thousands of people with their individual situation.
Yeah. No, I
No,
mean,
but what I was going to bring up, Alan, was does this fall into the circle?
yeah, it does.
Maybe we can explain the circle because I know about the circle, but
Okay.
I know that you do use this often in your therapy sessions. So,
So basically what I do is I draw like a donut or a bagel for people and the center part of it, like, so it looks like a little bit like a bullseye or whatever you want to call it. And you put the people in your life in order of intimacy and what you share. And intimacy doesn't have to be sex. It could just be your emotions and your feelings and your past and like the things that we hold very dear and close to us or shame even. And so if people were to put all the people they know into these circles, the center circle with many clients is zero. If they have a partner, maybe it's their partner. Sometimes if they have a sibling or a childhood best friend, but other times people don't really have anyone that they're truly 100% honest with about everything. As you go outside the circle, the center one, but you're close to it, you may share that you had a conflict with your partner, or you may share that something's going on at work, or that you're frustrated with your kids, or the things that people talk about. And it's okay because it's still intimacy, but you wouldn't share the traumas of your partner with them or what they've shared with you. And as you go further out, they become your activity friends. And those are the people that you maybe go play sports or golf with, or you may, like to go to the movies with them, or and these friends, these activity play poker, you're going to have cool conversations about life, but you probably wouldn't start getting into your concerns about your child with them. And if you did, they'd be like, "Hey, dude, like, why are we talking about this?" Like it would just be weird to them. But it's important to have friends like that. And in the outer circle, people on the outside are people who know your name and they know and you know theirs. So if you saw them walking around, you'd be like, "Dave, oh my God, it's been forever. We haven't seen each other." And you guys would talk for a second. You'd exchange phone numbers. You'd say, "We'll text each other. We should totally get together." And then you probably won't get together with them. And so those are the kind of people that you see, and you like what you're mentioning, that they are maybe they've written to you, they've met you, they've added you as a friend, but you're not really friends with them. You don't talk to them on the phone, you
So,
don't do things.
so which circle should social media be in? Like
Well, to me,
in
social
your mind?
media, it's I guess it's different for how people want to use it because I'm a man, so I don't use it the same way that a lot of my female friends do. But I do think that like it shouldn't be a venting place because I think these people don't have context. And so there's an intervention that I'll do sometimes with couples, and I think this works actually well with friends. And as an individual, I would call it trash can therapy. I've had clients before that come in and they vent for an hour. And it's like I've only had a couple of these ones, but I remember a teacher telling me about it. And they said he called it trash can therapy because a client will come in and say, like, Alan, I'm sure you're a smart guy. I'm sure you have insight, but that's not why I'm here. I just want to vent. And they will vent about their boss, but they don't want to quit their job. They will vent about their coworkers, but they don't want to have conflict with coworkers. They'll vent about their wife or their husband, but they don't want a divorce. They'll vent about their children, but they love their children. And you go into it knowing that they still have to express their emotions about those things in a safe environment. And it's like vomiting into a trash can, so to speak. And so I think as human beings, we all benefit from a place where we can just talk freely and be express ourselves. But we have to look at, do people have context of what we're saying and understand and not, because I think as I said in the last podcast about prejudice, if they're only looking, if it's an acquaintance of yours and they're only looking at what you post, they're going to form an opinion about you based on that. And you have to keep that in mind. I like when couples have what I call a venting moment, which is you get a 10-minute timer and that person gets the floor, the soapbox, so to speak, and they can vent about the traffic, and they can vent about their parents, and they can vent about their, the food or whatever, whatever's upsetting them in life, politics, and at the end of 10 minutes, the timer goes off, they can wipe their mouth, and they're done. You don't interrupt them, you just let them get it out. And usually by the time they do, they're better. They're not picking conflicts with other people. They're not picking conflicts with you because they're not coming in hot. They're not, it's like getting that stuff off your chest makes you you again. And so I'm a big fan of opening up and having friends in real life that you can talk to that have context that understand that, like, just because you might be upset with your husband or your wife doesn't mean you don't love them, but they can still listen to you and they don't think like, oh, wow, they must be having problems. But I do think that sometimes we do as human beings use social media as therapy, and we probably should be going to therapy to sort of get some of that stuff out so that we're not bringing partial thoughts or fears or in some way the gloom and doom, to strangers, basically.
Yeah, I think ideally we would actually have connection with people that are our Facebook friends, but reality is uh, you have the different circles even within your Facebook
Yeah.
situation. So some people, though, I think they just feel you know these people that'll be right in front of you and start talking about something
Yeah.
that you're like, I shouldn't be hearing about this situation.
Right.
What I don't know what you want from me right now. If anything, I just want you to stop talking to me about this. So some of those people probably just take that because that's their nature right onto social media.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you would do about a person like that. I felt very uncomfortable at times with people that are only political on social media,
Yeah.
and they draw a dividing line and they almost dare you to disagree with them if you want to be my friend.
Yeah.
Well, if you voted for this person, you're off the friend, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you walk around in life doing that to people? That's just, if you value people at all, you would try to find the commonality,
Yeah.
not the differences.
Yeah, I have no patience for that. I don't partake neither. Scotty and I have never participated in
You say
any.
never, but I remember I worked news talk,
That's right.
for
After.
which was very political after our show, and I was very uncomfortable because I was forced, basic not by the company, but by the nature of that business, to have an opinion on
Right.
things.
Gosh, how long
And
did you do that for?
oh, okay, at least a couple of years. And you when you express an opinion, that's when you divide people.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so you
Yep.
have to be, I mean, it's fine. It's not even wrong for people to express opinion and have a have discourse, have a conversation about it, but respectfully, not with lines drawn.
Right. So, but I do like that circle thing. I've always remembered it because Alan explained it to me a long time ago, and I do like that, and to find out and to put people in that right place in the circle. You know what I mean? You have to really think about that and who you're going to,
Right. I
devote
mean, is it
information
okay
to.
to tell people that like certain people that you're going on a vacation or certain people that you just saw a movie, the new Mission Impossible movie, but then would you go to another person who's on the outside of the circle and start telling them about your parents', breast cancer or something like that? And that would be an uncomfortable conversation with someone that you don't know that well. And so I do think that we do have to sort of understand, and the circle is not static, to be clear. Like as a person who can be an activity, a friend of mine, I can test that person by opening up about some intimacy and see if they take the bait and then open up about intimacy themselves. So most people, especially men, if you're vulnerable and you talk about your struggles as a father or your struggles as a husband or your struggles in business, it almost like gives them permission to do the same. But it's healthy because you're both sharing intimacy and you're both learning from each other and you're hopefully normalizing some of what you feel and you're not catastrophizing. It's when it goes to strangers and somebody's venting about something and like they got dumped and this person's a horrible person and all the things they did. I don't know what to say because it's like, do you say, I'm sorry? And now you're in it? Or do you put an emoji? But I find that if it's a person I don't really know and they're opening up too quickly, I don't really want to be around people who don't have boundaries because I think those people don't really know what friendship is. It's like a new person they meet as their new best friend. And I think when you're around people like that, they're constantly changing friends. And so it's hard, you can feel close to them because they just shared something so emotional with you. And the next day you're not even friends with them anymore. And
You
so,
know,
yeah, you have to work those things, I think.
Hudson, you've often kind of challenged me on not being real active in social media. This is one of the reasons why I find it very hard to judge what's shareable and what's not.
Yeah.
And if I have something like I went to an interesting place, I'm like, I could share that with anybody. Hey, here's some pictures from that place. But if let's say I don't know, I was sick. I'm like, I'm not, nobody care. I mean, whatever, get over your
Had a
sickness.
hemorrhoid flare up.
Right. And so I don't share. Or something good happens and
Right.
I feel like, am I boasting if I share this? Do I
Yeah.
want to show this thing that I bought that I'm really happy with?
Right.
Like, for example, my wife posted a picture of me on the John Deere when
Hmm.
I first got it. I thought
Yeah.
that was super cool. But it's
Oh,
easy
yeah.
because she took the picture and she's the one who kind of put it out there. But I wouldn't go, look what I got,
Right. Because that's just
you know?
not who you are.
And so I find myself just stuck. Sometimes I'm like, this is really cool, but I can't share that.
But you see, you're different because you're not a social media person to begin with. You never have been. I mean, you go occasionally, you'll look at the funny videos. You'll catch up with close friends and see what they're up to and give it a
Yeah.
heart or a thumbs up. And that's about it for you. All right. I know your routine. I've known you for over 20 years. But there are people that and again, I'm not sure if it's being vulnerable or it's just having an emotional dump. I get
Right.
torn by some of these
Well, I
posts.
think, yeah, I mean, it's kind of narcissism in a way. I mean, I really think there's a grandiosity about social media that people think that everybody cares about what's going on in their life. And I do care about my inner circle people, if we use that analogy. I care when they get a new house or a new car or something's going on with their kids or something. But the majority of people that are acquaintances, I don't really want to know what's going on in their life. And I feel that the people that you see that are oversharing on social media are people who probably don't have a lot of in-person friends. So that's their outlet and the validation they get. And it makes me sad because when I see those things, it's not like I look at it with any kind of, anger or like, why would they post that? I feel sadness because, like you said, it's like that should have gone to your neighbor or it should have gone to your kid or your wife directly, or it should have gone to your parents or it should have gone to your boss or whatever it is that was going on in your life. But it's sad when people don't have that. And it makes me even sadder that because they're considering those online friends their social support system in some ways, that what happens when you say something with real emotion and relevance and vulnerability, but it only gets two reactions, and you're one of the reactions yourself. How does that make you feel? And I think
Yeah.
I've always, whenever I see people posting things like that, and then there's no comments or there's like nobody saying anything, I feel so bad for that person. It's almost like having a birthday party that no one comes to, and like they're just sitting there with the cake and nobody's
Yeah.
there. And so that's heartbreaking for me. And so I feel like I'm watching like a train wreck sometimes because I wish people could find that intimacy in real life. And again, that doesn't you earn it, I think. I don't think I don't when Hudson and I go and meet friends, I don't open up right away about center circle things with them. But my goal always is to move the people who are my activity friends potentially into intimacy, potentially to develop that common ground and compassion for one another and friendship so that we can use each other sometimes as unofficial therapists. But I do think that when you see that stuff online, there's a lot of sadness that I feel about it. And I wish people had a better outlet to get that stuff out. I embrace their pain and I feel it, but it makes me sad that they're alone and that they're expecting, the person they worked with 7 years ago to be the person who's going to pat them on the back and say it's okay.
But yeah, but going back to what you had, just brought up about posting that John Deere, cool picture, because it's something that you have talked about and wanted
Yep.
for as long as I've known you, and you finally got the thing, you know what I mean? But it does make you feel awkward. Like, I don't want to be bragging about this. And even though it was your wife that took the photo, you sometimes just yeah, I don't know. Should I post this? Shouldn't I? Because you don't want people to think the wrong thing. Just because in the digital age of the world that we live in, because people do post things just to be like, oh, look at me.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? The spotlight effect, which by the way, another good episode of Mike and Mind. Go back and check out that one. It's a real thing.
You know, to piggyback on that, there was a point, and I remember this specific post. I was so happy with how well I played golf in a tournament. And I posted something about the score that I shot. I think it was like I shot a 68 and won this event, right? I was very happy about that. That was not the norm for me to go that low. And I was like, wow. And one of the comments from someone who knew me from Hilo, actually, when I was living over there, was how sad it is that you've gotten to the point that you boast about a rich man's sport and something da 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 da. And it just like instead of sharing my joy on something that I've accomplished, it was indicating that I'm a shallow or whatever they were saying by saying that.
So far
And
from the
Well,
truth.
do
Scott,
you
you said
guys, I mean, don't you guys associate social media with depression? I know I do. I think the people that I see that are constantly on social media scrolling and looking at other people's lives and they're seeing partials of other people's lives. And again, it is bragging. People tend to post, their new car they got, the vacation they went on, the new purse they got, what their kid's accomplishment was. So they build a narrative. That's why it's that narcissism, that grandiosity on the surface because you don't know the bad stuff. You only know the good stuff, and you can be like, "Wow, they are the best family."
But
But
hold up. Let me just say this. But on the other hand, you also have the people who truly are sharing that because they believe that these people are their internet friends
correct.
and they're being vulnerable. Because I
Yeah.
do know a handful of people who are not braggy, boastful, and by every means could be. And let me just tell you, they could blow anybody that I know out of the water. But it's because they're feeling vulnerable. And that is the whole new, like that, this whole Gen Z era. It's
Yeah.
all about vulnerability. It's all
Safe
about
space.
therapy. It's about
Yeah.
just, you know what I'm saying? So I don't, it's a fine line. It really is. And it's hard to determine what is being vulnerable and what is being,
And do people even get something when an acquaintance says, "Oh, I feel so bad for you," or "Don't worry, it's going to turn around"? Like, does that impact people? And maybe it does. I do think there's a lot of evil eye. I think I'm always hesitant. I tell husband, I don't want to post pictures of a nice dinner or pictures of things that other people can't afford because that'll just make people upset and jealous and feel bad. And why would I want to do that? I don't need to gloat about my
right.
life and
For
about.
example, okay, the cheap $5,000 boat, which was a lot of money for me. I mean, I'm not working. So that was a lot of money for me to buy. And I was so excited, okay? Before I knew that it was a bum boat and I got screwed over. But I was so excited. I wanted to post a picture of Alan like looking at it for the first time, because he had just gotten here and I was so excited. So I took the photo and I had put it in my Instagram story and I just couldn't post it because part of me was
Yep.
concerned that, oh, here we go,
Yeah.
the new life, the new boat. And I'm like, no, because it's just not going to come across, even though my real close friends who do know me on social media know how much I paid for it because I shared it, and that I thought I got such a great deal. But the other part of me had to regulate and go, no, you know what? I'm not doing this because it could come across the wrong way. And I don't want to be looked at like that. And so I never posted it, you know? So it's hard. There's a very fine line when it comes to oversharing, especially on social media.
Well, I feel like people are yeah, there's definitely this halo effect of spotlight effect that people want to be the star. They want to be the main character. So I think when they're sharing stuff, they're building a character or a brand of themselves online that is 80% authentic and 20% inauthentic because they're not sharing any flaws. They're only sharing it's truth they're sharing, but without context. And I think that to me, when I see these types of things, it's it's sort of also the evil eye of if you're sharing that, let's say Hudson and I were to go out with four couples this weekend. And let's say all the girls got all excited, like it was like last weekend, even I'll say, you
You
know,
went out last
we were
weekend.
at this house party and all the women were making a post. It was beautiful and it was lightning out or whatever. And they were making this post together and they're all tagging each other. And I thought about it at the time about the women that weren't there and what was going to happen when you posted that because who's going to feel excluded, who is going to feel like I don't understand, why didn't I go, why didn't you tell me you guys were going to that? I would have gone, I would have bought tickets, or I would have eaten at that restaurant, or and I always feel like living a private life and maybe sharing some things online, pictures of whatever it is that you want to share. I understand. But I always look at it as these are not on the circles. These are all the externals. If anything that is important to me, I will call a friend or text a friend. I will not put it on Facebook or Instagram. But when I see that people do it, it just tells me that they don't have those people in their
You
lives.
know,
And I think for people listening to this, it's why, like what holds you back sometimes from opening up to the people that are already in your lives and taking your activity friends that maybe you play tennis with or maybe you play poker with and trying to get used to intimacy, especially men, and talking what it's like to be a married man or talking what it's like to be a dad or talking what it's like, to survive in business if you run your own business. I think men are not as good as women in their ability to have those social networks that can sort of help each other. And if you don't have that, then go to therapy. Like, don't see therapy as pathology and wait for it to be problem focused. Be solution focused. And if there's things that you really want to achieve in your life and make it better, most of my clients are already successful in many aspects of their life. They're just looking to fill the puzzle gaps.
well, I think if you think about what friendship is to me,
Mhm.
it's that person that shares your joy and shares your pain. It's someone that you can talk real life with, whether
Yep.
it's something great that happened to you. They know you enough to know that you're not trying to say, I'm better than you, or I achieved this and you can't. I have this thing that you can't afford. They're just excited because they know where I came from and what I accomplished.
Yep.
And if I go through a rough patch, I want someone that understands the backstory of me to understand why that's rough for me and how to encourage me or help me through it, whether it's listening or giving me advice, that sort of thing. You need that, whether it's as you said, someone that you're getting therapy from, or just that friend. When you think about it, if something great happened to you today, who would you call?
Yep.
Who's that person that would share your joy? Those are the people that you need in your life. And unfortunately, I think we've desensitized ourselves on what friendship is really supposed to be, and we've diluted it with this social media, and we put too much emphasis on how we're perceived instead of sharing our real life and having great relationships.
I love what you just said.
I do too, Scotty. Wow, look at that. That was really well said. And by the way, I do like your shirt. I'm in my shirt as I'm listening to you and sort of
Thank you.
mesmerized by that last statement because that's dead on. It really is. And
Really is.
I think that I think I just also there might be some single moms or single dads that are trying to find love again. And I think maybe Alan, you should give them some advice about this oversharing because again, like I was saying earlier when we had first started this podcast, this episode, I
Mhm.
have a friend and she's single. She's so attractive. She has so much to offer, but I do feel that the oversharing and telling so much about your life to somebody you've only talked to online. You haven't even met them. You haven't even FaceTimed them yet. You none of the above, but yet they know everything. They know about your family. They know about your divorce. And I get the divorce part because you're trying to explain your history and a little bit about you, but I don't think divulging all of that, like in a first text message or the second text message back and forth, is good or it's the way to go. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know.
You're
But we do that
100%.
on social media, right? That's what you're saying. You're instead of just texting it, you're just send it out to everybody.
Yep. No, I 100% agree. I think that we should be, I think a lot of the reasons why people are struggling in relationships right now is because of false intimacy. I think they disclose too much too fast and then it can overwhelm a person. And we
Men
all have,
especially.
well, all have traumas in our life, but it's like when I think back, and maybe this is dating myself, but it was like meeting a girl in person, getting her phone number, calling her, going on a date with her, talking to her a little bit on the phone, maybe before the date, but not much. And then it took time for us to get to those places of maybe we talk about family, or maybe there's like something that is a tragedy, or maybe there's a disability, or maybe, this person has an issue with something. If they told me that right at the beginning, I never would have gotten to know them. And once I start to like them, does that flaw seem as important? No. And I wish people would be, more open in the beginning so that if there are those things, again, you're looking at them like what Scotty said, in context of what they really are, and not necessarily, a person you don't know who's just suddenly oversharing, some experience of fear or anger or whatever they're feeling. Because I could easily get an impression from some of those people on social media that I are acquaintances of mine that they're just always angry. They're
Mm.
always angry. Like I have this one guy that I went to high school with, and it's just political posts over and over and over again in anger. And I just think to myself, I'm sure he's more than that. I know he's a dad. I know he's got
Right.
two kids, and he's got a cool life. But at the same time, that's all I know about him. Really, is what he's sharing. And so we have to remember, like I think for people like us and people maybe listening that are in our age group, the importance of in-person friendships, the importance of earning, that in the circle, that intimacy and trust that a person can be vulnerable with you and feel safe with it. But it takes time, it takes trust. And I wish more people had those people. I know the other day I was so upset about something and I called my friend and I was on the phone with him for an hour and I felt better. And I think that's not the same thing if I posted that on social media and 20 people wrote, their opinions about it. I don't know if I'd feel better. Or maybe I
I
would.
don't I don't think it would make you feel better. I think it would just make you feel more depressed.
Validated, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But there are people that do that for the validation.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of folks that drama dump on social media.
Yep.
And I think if you think about it, which things get the most reactions? Usually it's something that has an extreme opinion
Yeah.
or view or perspective. And people go, I totally understand that. Yes. Or other people go, wow, you're a whack job. What happened to you?
Yeah.
But they get this sense of importance because they brought up something that's so, I don't know, interesting
And comments and
Yeah,
reactions.
you're getting like all the
and so then
hearts, the thumbs
then it encour
up.
then it encourages you to keep doing that instead of sharing another side that, hey, great thing happened to me, funny thing happened to me today, blah, blah, blah. Well, nobody cares about that.
Well, people get this dopamine reaction. It's funny because I work with people
Right.
sometimes that work for social media companies, and they don't let their kids go on social media, and they themselves don't really use social media because they know that it's addictive and that it's false, like dopamine. So if I post something that I'm excited about, and a bunch of strangers thumb up it, and I get like 50 likes or something like that, and I feel happy about it, or I get 2 likes and I feel depressed and lonely about it, I can feel happy about it for maybe an hour, but I'm still alone in my apartment or my house, and then what? It doesn't. It's like a false sense of like, look, all these people care, and I got validation for it. But it doesn't really make you feel better than a person looking you in the eye that actually cares about you and likes you and is there present with you through whatever you're going through. It's not the same thing, and I
Well,
just wish that there was more of the in-person stuff these days.
and we've always had those moments where someone will say, that means a lot coming from you,
Yeah,
because you could have 20 people say it, but that one person who really understands and gets it, and they say this, you're like, wow, there's value. And
All the,
that's
yeah.
that's
yeah,
more, here's the other thing that I don't know if people really understand about social media is there are people that just use it as a toy.
yeah.
And what I mean is I walked into an office of a guy who was on his computer, and I may have told Hudson this, and he goes, hold on just a second. Tiki, 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 tiki. It goes, okay. I go, what were you up to? And because he kind of chuckled, and he goes, oh, there's somebody posted something.
Mhm.
And then I put this, and it was something completely contrary and whatever. And then he just sits back
The
and
firestorm.
he just gets joy from
Remember that.
making that person just blow up and come back at him. And
Mhm.
and then the people that will follow up. He's just an instigator, just a troll.
Yep.
And you've got those people that are genuinely in an office doing that.
Oh yeah. I think my oldest
100%.
brother used to do that just for fun. He would go into these message boards and he would take the contrary position that was so outside the realm on purpose, just to get everybody fighting. And then next thing you know, it's like you said, it's like you just sit back and you watch the chaos, and it's like watching a weird TV show that you kind of started. But again, is that intimacy? Is that real? It's not even sincere. And so I think when I look at relationships in general, I want to consider online relationships, but there is something very different than, when my friend comes over and he gives me a hug or he tells me, great job on this. There's nothing like that. And there's no emoji that can imitate that. I do think that like people have to be more careful though online about their disclosures, because if you share too many good things, you create jealousy, animosity, and evil eye. If you share too many
Even
bad things,
even within your own close friendship.
oh yeah. Oh, 100%. Like if I was sitting there sharing, I just remember, like posting a picture of a vacation years ago and a friend coming up to me and saying, "Wow, you went on vacation again. You must be doing well." And it wasn't like a big deal. I think it was like a road trip or whatever it was. And it was like, I think the second or third vacation I'd taken that year. And it wasn't like any vacation was some extravagant, like, crazy European vacation. But I would think that my friends would be happy for me as opposed to looking at it and saying, well, that's not fair. Why does he get to go on vacation? And is that person even a friend? If people are looking at those things with animosity, being like, look at her nose, or look, she thinks, look at her, I can totally see that her body is this, or she's doing this, and she's using a filter. And I think that sometimes you have frenemies online. You have people who actually secretly are jealous and dislike you. So what you're sharing is either making them angry, or if it's negative things, it's making them happy. And I
And
think
what will they say online? Love it.
that's
Exactly.
right.
Oh, love it. You
Oh
look
yeah, they'll
so
heart it.
hot.
They'll still
You
heart
look
it and they'll
so
act like they're
hot.
your friend. You look gorgeous. Oh my God, you look beautiful. You guys are the best. But inside,
Hashtag
that's
hotness. Yeah.
yeah. No,
But you're actually doing harm to people too who are living a real life and can't do some of the things that they think you're doing
that you're not.
because you're just super wealthy. I'll give you an example. I would fly to the neighbor islands when I was living in Hawaii and go play golf and then come back later that day, play two
Yep.
rounds of golf, and you're like, wow, that's something. To airline, what? No, I was doing Hawaiian Airlines in-flight radio with Hudson. They would pay us with free airline trips, so
Yep.
it
Right.
didn't cost me a thing. Another guy had won a golf certificate in a golf tournament to play some neighbor island course, and one person pitched in and got the rental car, and we just all went over together. But if you looked at me, I'm a jet set and fly off to Maui to go play
Right.
golf guy.
That's
100%.
so not Scotty.
You don't know the backstory, you
Right.
know?
And
Or
we
it's like,
all know Alan, by the way. He likes a comfort inn.
Yes,
$62, the all-inclusive breakfast,
breakfast included.
Mhm.
breakfast included.
That's included.
So we know Alan and we
Yeah.
know how he rolls, but somebody else thinking, oh, nice. He took a nut. third vacation this year. Doing well, are you, Alan P. Wagner?
Well, there's an inauthenticity. If you're caring and you're tailoring your words and you're thinking very carefully about how it's going to be interpreted, then you can make yourself look like father of the year, mother of the year, husband of the year. Like, have you ever seen those people who online write these long anniversary posts to their partner in crime and we're on this journey of life and adventure together. I wouldn't rather have anyone else on it. And it's like whatever they write, it's like they are doing it for virtue. Either their wife made them write it, maybe, or they're writing it to not get in trouble with their wife, or they're trying if it's a woman writing it, maybe she's trying to make her friends all jealous that she's got a great partner. But a lot of the time, it's like that couple in real life, and you know that what they're saying is not absolutely true. It doesn't mean that they're not a good couple and they don't love each other, but they're not perfect. Just like when you see a picture of a family and you think to yourself in the chaos of your own family, like, wow, I wish I had a family like that. But it's like you forget. I always used to say to people, it's like during the pumpkin patch season, when people would go to the farm, like they always had these cute pictures sitting on these straw, these hay, things, and it's like all the families together and they're smiling, and it looks like the best family ever. And most people who don't do stuff like that with their kids or their kids are on screens, they're just like, man, I suck, or that theirs are the best. But they forget that in between that picture, before it was taken, there was a meltdown that happened because they didn't get to ride the pony. And there was another meltdown that happened because they didn't get to eat this thing at the stand. And you got that one snapshot. And then right after you took that picture, everything flared up and you
Yeah.
stormed to the car and you all drove home and everybody was upset. But
No
nobody
one
knows
sees that.
that.
They just
But
see
nobody
that.
posted that. Nobody
I
Right.
posted
always
that.
I always say that about Disneyland, the happiest
Yep.
place on earth. How much of the time at Disneyland is spent resolving issues,
Correct.
dealing with whining and crying and complaining, and then what did you present to everybody? This
Yep.
beautiful picture, the fireworks
Goofy
went
and
off.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. You got the
It's
ears
so
on.
true. It is so true. And I know someone is listening right now going, oh my gosh, totally. This
Yeah.
Yeah.
totally
But
happened.
but I guess the ultimate lesson is we all know that's the truth. So don't be fooled because
Mhm.
somebody has this immaculate life that they've shared online. Just be happy and live where you are and don't try to compete
Yeah.
and be
Well,
happy for them because that's important to them. That's why they posted it. But who knows what they're really dealing with on the inside and how hollow they may be.
you know,
Right. You don't know what they're going through.
what you said about the golf thing and how you got the free airlines and stuff like that, I think it makes me think about Hudson and I going to all these shows all the time. And somebody would look at it and say, wow, that's so insane. Like you're going to all these concerts and all that. But they forget that a lot of times these are comped tickets. We're not paying for those concerts. And if we're sharing it online, it's not because we're trying to brag to people or make them jealous. It's because
No,
we want them to see the music. Like I've been at concerts before with Hudson where she's live streaming because she wants the fans or her friends or even acquaintances to get a chance to see the Chili Peppers or to get a chance to see, some artists that they normally wouldn't get to see live in real time. And so it's not that she's saying like, look at me, I'm at the Chili Peppers. It's more about her sharing an experience with people in a positive way. So I
And there's a
use it
eh,
differently.
sorry, and there's an expectation as well a lot of times from the company that you post a certain amount of
Of
things at
course.
events that
right.
you're
We have
sponsoring.
things that were written in our contract that you've got to post this amount of times, that amount of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it comes to things like that,
Well, if
yeah,
you're going to get free tickets to a concert, I'm sure the artist and the label would prefer that you post some nice things for fans so that they may go purchase tickets in the future or purchase that album or listen to them on Spotify. So there's a mutual symbiotic relationship to it. But again, it's like people don't know the details. All they get to see is Hudson and I dressed up at the show, or they'll see you playing golf on an island. But they're not understanding that the ways that it happens are actually really normal. That we're not living this crazy, super rich, jet setting, private jet life. It's just that we get great experiences. And I wish more people like had more context and they shared the bad. That's why I like that circle thing. And I know, we don't have that much time, but I'll just say on the circle, that donut thing that we were saying earlier, I want people to test their friends in real life and talk about what it's like at work, talk about what it's like to be married, talk about what it's like to have a kid melting down at Disneyland, talk about, how difficult things are sometimes, but also share the good so that they understand that, like, yes, you do some things that maybe they wish they could do, but you also struggle with things too, because we're human and we're complex. And
Yeah.
I like that. And I'm worried about this next generation because I feel like they're so hesitant to put themselves in real life situations and they're so concerned with the brand they present online, but it's not truly them. And that's why depression is up.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's even emulating bad behavior or, you know, dangerous things because the people they admire do those sort of things. And I think social media, and that's why there's the lawsuits, right? People suing the social media because their kids reacted in a bad way to it. I think until our brains are developed, and even then, we're still susceptible, but especially as youth. I mean, how many times in real life growing up did you get drawn into something that you look back on and go, boy, I was a dummy doing that,
Oh
whatever it
yeah.
was.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
Oh my
but now
God.
we're doing it in front of the world.
I always think about this one pitcher. I don't know why. Josh Hader, maybe I think his name was. He was this pitcher for the Brewers a few years ago, and he threw 100 miles an hour, and he was amazing. And he was pitching in the All-Star game. I think he was like 22 or 23 years old. And while he came on the mound, he was the closer. The guy throws 100 something miles an hour. He's amazing. Somebody released an old tweet of him and his friends in high school rapping to this like song that had profanity in it
Mm,
and obviously some other potential controversial words that were in the song. But it wasn't meant to be racist. It was actually just kids singing along to a song that was written and literally singing the lyrics. But then it got released, and he had to go on to this whole apology tour to his teammates. He was suspended by the league, I remember, and then he had to apologize to all of his teammates. And he was like 15 years old. Like, what does a 15-year-old know? He's just singing with his friends. There was nothing bad he was doing, but at the same time, these things haunt us. And when you post stuff online, sometimes people screenshot it. And I've seen that with kids in middle school and elementary school. Like, even if you don't think that your story is going to last because it's only 48 hours or 24 hours, whatever it lasts, the screenshot can be passed around to at school to a bunch of kids. And what you say sometimes will be permanent. So I just think that like we have to be authentic. And I think when I look at the disclosures, why do people do it? It feels good. It feels good to be on an airplane and have that. If you guys ever saw that movie Fight Club, and he's talking about that like single serving friends, like when you go on an airplane, like you get that person who sits next to you and you could talk about anything because you're never going to see them again and it
mm.
doesn't matter. And so people really enjoy that. But I think that's what people like about therapy. I think we all need to open up about what makes us excited, what makes us happy, what makes us sad. But we do need to sort of measure the people that we share it with of how close are we to these people and what does closeness mean to us?
That's good advice.
It
Yeah.
really is.
You know,
Good episode, guys.
I
I want
like it. And I think it's about over because I had Taco Bell and then a coffee. So my time's about spent here.
it's he's telling us he wants a GTFO. He wants to go now. Yeah, but first in story, we got to give a shout out. Let me just read this to you. And I dig this girl. I was actually with her this past weekend, and she had just learned of our podcast. Her name is Alicia Sumner, and she goes, "Hey, I just want to tell you that I've been listening to the podcast, and I love them. The couples seeking couple is so accurate." And she's like, I'm going to start all the way at the top and work my way down. I really love it. I can't wait to listen to the next one. Alicia Sumner of North Carolina.
Very
Thank you
cool.
so much for listening to our podcast. And that's what makes me happy. You know what I mean? Because we'll be out and I'll casually mention it to somebody and she took note and listened. And so that rocks my world.
Well, after everything we said about social media, please follow us on social media.
Right. Yeah.
Give us a like and,
Give us a
and a
like. Let
rating.
Scotty know you dig his shirt. He's wearing a nice Aloha Friday shirt, something that would occur every Friday when we do our show together.
But in all
And
seriousness, unlike social media, I mean, these things help when you subscribe or you give a rating to the show, it just gets it out to more people. So hopefully these are conversations that people are listening to and gaining something from. And I hope that they are.
like even this is a good one to share with a friend, somebody that you know that does a lot of oversharing, okay? Whether it's in real life or it's on social media, and you're like, okay, I don't want to hear any more about, the neighbor. You know what I'm saying? I'm done. So take a listen to this podcast. It's a good one for you. Find your circle. I'm Hudson Hott. That is Scotty Blaisdell. Alan Wagner, our resident therapist, LMFT. We're Mike and Mind. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And thanks for listening.
See
Thanks,
ya.
guys.